Good day, future social workers. Good day, Miss Jazz. For today's discussion, we're going to discuss about the community resiliency model. But before anything else, let me introduce to you the Group 5. Yours truly, Rosemary Samon, Amy Rose Sumablay, Raniel Tirol, Jennifer Omalsa, Charlene Valdehueza, Ricami Valles, Lindy Rementezo, and Jonard Taing. Learning outcome. To identify what community resiliency is, to learn the methods and techniques on how to conduct counseling in an effective way using the community resilience model, to understand the importance of skills in applying the counseling approach. Students able to learn the 6 skills on community resiliency model and its application to social work practice. In the field of mental health, resilience is generally defined as a person's ability to overcome stress and adversity. Psychologists have often portrayed resilience as an individual trait. Recently, though, there is increasing recognition that this individual-centered approach to resilience is problematic because it lacks sensitivity to social and cultural context. A new body of work is attempting to expand the focus on resilience as a characteristic of the individual to one of the resilience as a community and cultural process.
This new focus on community resilience looks at how people overcome stress, trauma, and other life challenges by drawing from the social and cultural networks and practices that constitutes communities. At the same time, it draws attention to the resilience of the community itself. Much recent work on community resilience has focused on responding to environmental disasters like flooding, hurricanes, tsunamis, or earthquakes. While there are many aspects that are relevant to the concerns of Aboriginal communities, there are also fundamental differences. The concept of community resilience has important implications for efforts to promote mental health in Aboriginal communities. Theories of community resilience are consonant with Aboriginal values that emphasize the importance of a person's relations with others and the environment. Aboriginal perspective on resilience then led us to think about the social ecological networks that can reduce individual vulnerability and enhance well-being.
In psychology and psychiatry, the concept of resilience emerged from clinical observations and research that recognize that many children do well despite very difficult childhood experiences. That was according to Luther 2006. In particular, some children whose parents have severe mental health problems nonetheless grew up to be well-functioning adults. In adulthood, the resilient person is someone who lives a successful life as defined by such factors as steady employment, a stable marriage, and overall well-being in spite of having been exposed to high levels of emotional, mental, or physical distress. The positive outcomes that provide evidence of resilience may be experiential or behavioral. Bonanno 2005, for example, defines resilience as an ongoing capacity for positive emotions and generative experiences during or following hardship. Well-being, absence of depression or other symptom indicators may be taken as measures of individual resilience if the individual has a history of adversities that would usually lead to poor mental health. Behaviorally, resilience may be indicated by good performance in relationships, school, work, or other social rules. This makes it clear that social rules, norms, and expectations are intrinsic to any definition and recognition of resilience. The strong normative aspect of resilience means it can only be defined in terms of specific cultural values and frameworks, and thus may vary in different cultural contexts.
Resilience can refer to, first, a sort of strength, resistance, or invulnerability that prevents the individual from getting sick. Second, a capacity to heal, recover, and return to functioning quickly and fully. Or third, an ability to adapt, change course, and find a new way to live and go forward despite impairment. Situations of resilience are characterized by successful outcome rather than the negative consequences that would otherwise be expected. This implies, first, an exposure to threat or adversity. Second, the achievement of positive adaptation despite major challenges on the developmental trajectory. Here, adaptation indicates some combination of coping and growth or transformation despite chronic risk, stress, trauma, or catastrophe.
Community Resiliency Model is a groundbreaking wellness initiative created by the Trauma Resource Institute. It uniquely provides a non-judgmental perspective on normal human reactions to stress or trauma and encourages people to pass the skills along to their family, friends, and wider communities. The primary focus of this skills-based model is to reset the nervous system's natural balance. CRM skills help people understand their nervous system and learn to track sensations connected to their own well-being. Using the wisdom of their own bodies, people experience rapid relief from stress-related symptoms as well as an increased sense of control over future wellness. CRM is easily learned and accessible regardless of age, culture, or education level. These skills are useful for self-care and can be taught in a variety of contexts. They are particularly helpful for individuals responding to stress and trauma in environments such as hospitals, classrooms, community centers, faith communities, and neighborhoods. The goal of CRM is to create trauma-informed and resiliency-focused communities that share a common understanding of the impact of trauma and chronic stress on the nervous system. The easily learned and shared techniques give community members the skills to restore and increase resiliency.
Okay, so now let's proceed to the resilience as an individual trait or characteristic. Research in psychiatry and psychology tends to approach resilience as an individual phenomenon. From the 1970s, psychologists have continued to explore the individual qualities that enable people to deal effectively with adversity. Traits such as self-mastery, self-efficacy,
Positive outlook and sense of humor have been isolated as contributing to resilience in the general population. Rotter, for example, suggests that resilience largely depends on mental operations and mediating processes that reflect personal agency, idiosyncratic habits, coping mechanisms, mental sets, and the ways that people deal with challenges. In other words, an individual's source of resilience lies mainly in their personal abilities and the cognitive strategies they use to get through adversities. These individuals minimize the impact of loss while increasing continued contact with and support from important people in the social environment. Those with self-enhancing biases were socially awkward but nevertheless effective managers of stress. Based on these results, Bonanno suggests that there are different types of resilience, both in terms of pathways and outcomes. Individuals may apply specific abilities to achieve different desired outcomes. Resilience is a dynamic process that may vary from one social context to the next and from one worldview or value system to another. Resilience is not one thing or process. Different metaphors and models highlight aspects that may be relevant to individuals or communities in different settings or times. However, at a more general level, resilience reflects processes that draw from multiple sources of strength and resources to allow people to face, live with, manage, and overcome challenges. A major challenge in this work is to describe the effect of these variables throughout developmental stages. Rest or protection at one stage, for instance adolescence, might affect a person immediately or only later in life. The significance of specific competences, challenges, and relationships changes over the life cycle. Resilience is not a simple linear causal process in which an abundance of strength leads directly to a good developmental outcome. Instead, resilience involves interactions among multiple processes or strategies, giving rise to alternate trajectories of development. Resilience often involves trade-offs in which something is gained and something lost. Clearly, this makes it important to monitor the effects of any intervention carefully, measuring multiple outcomes to ensure that desired effects in one area of a person's life are not being achieved at the cost of another equally important concern. Individual resilience may be strongly influenced by family process. Families too have their resilience. The defining outcomes of resilience are adaptation and growth. They see resilience as part of a family developmental transition involving successful adaptation in the face of trauma, if not catastrophic conditions. This leads them to distinguish between resilient and non-resilient families. Resilient families find a way through transitions and situational difficulties and can cope, adjust, adapt, and even thrive despite hardship. In contrast, a non-resilient family tends to give up more easily or become exhausted. Families have diverse responses to stress, and there have been attempts to relate the models and typologies of family systems theory and family therapy to understanding resilience. The family must adjust its rules, goals, values, rules, and priorities according to external changes in order to achieve and maintain balance and harmony. The ability to bounce back and transform requires a range of competences in the areas of communication, emotion, spirituality, community relationships, and more. Culture and ethnic identity can exert positive influences on family resilience. Culture helps families to make sense of changes and it's therefore a source of stability and support, a way of dealing with the problems of daily life. Protective factors like cultural knowledge and practices enable flexibility and coherence, which are key components of both individual and family resilience.
Ecological or systematic resilience. Most ecological theories treat resilience as an individual phenomenon reflecting the contributional and developmental experiences of the person. Resilience usually has been approached primarily as an individual characteristic, even by community ecology researchers. This approach tends to downplay or ignore higher-level systemic and structural issues that may be the root causes of individual suffering and hold the potential for more effective interventions. This is a crucial issue for understanding resilience in indigenous communities. which continue to struggle with structural violence, systemic racism, and other forms of adversity. Larger systems such as communities and societies can also demonstrate resilience. Action between levels, individual, family, community, contribute to resilience at each level, rather than saying individuals in isolation from their cultural, social, and communal context. An ecological perspective also emphasizes the relationships within and between social systems, such as family, communities, societies, and cultures. Resilience is more than the sum of factors from each component. Each domain contributes new types of interaction with new dynamics. As Waller 2001 put it, resilience is a multi-determined and ever-changing product of interacting forces within a given ecosystemic context. Fleming and Ledugar 2008 discuss how Aboriginal researchers have added a relational cultural dimension to resilience by focusing on traditional activities in people's lives, such as spirituality, healing practices, and language. Early 2006 definition of cultural resilience is useful in this regard. The capacity of a distinct community or cultural system to absorb disturbance and reorganize while undergoing change so as to retain key elements of its structure and identity that preserve its distinctiveness. In this view, resilience occurs through a dynamic interaction of individual and collective processes that contribute to adaptability, strength, the ability to surmount obstacles, meet challenges, and recover from setbacks.
Familiar mo atong sa name ito win it guys sa showtime. So ang ato ang pretest karon is pariha ato. Ato ang category is kanang trauma ni stress common reaction sa physical lang. So maghatag mi og kanang pictures then kanang kamo magtagna kung unsa na siya nga trauma and stress reaction.
Trauma and stress common reaction. First, physical. Under the physical is the numb fatigue, physical pain, rapid heart rate, breathing problems, tight muscles, sleep problems, and stomach upset. Next, thinking. Under the thinking is paranoid, nightmares, dissociation, forgetfulness, poor decision, distorted thoughts, and suicidal or homicidal. Next, emotion. Under the emotion is rage, fear, grief, guilt, shame, anxiety, avoidance, and depression. Next, spiritual. Under the spiritual is the hopelessness, loss or increase of belief, deconstruction of self. Next, behavior. Under the behavior is isolation, tantrums, self-injury, addictions, eating disorders, and abusive behaviors. C. Trauma. Under the C. Trauma are racism, poverty, homophobia, bullying, oversaturation in media, domestic violence, child abuse, multiple deployments, multiple hospitalization. Sexism, homelessness, overdoses, stigmatization, multiple diagnosis, microaggressions, incarceration, gravely disabled, immigration challenges, and historical trauma. Lethal T trauma, dog bites, routine surgeries, falls, invasive dental or medical procedures, minor car accidents, medication side effects, and multiple med regimens. Big T trauma. First, national disasters, man-made disasters, war zone experiences, acts of terrorism, sexual assault, child abuse, act of violence, death of loved ones, car accidents, catastrophic illness. Vicarious trauma, witnessing overdose, psychosis or psychotic break, restraints or takedowns, manic episodes, and suicide attempt.
Good day everyone, I am Randall Tirol and I will be discussing about the three parts of the brain and the resilient zone. So the three parts of the brain. We have cortex or the thinking brain. Thinking integrates input from all three parts: cognition, beliefs, language, thought, and speech. It is in charge of thinking, organizing behavior, making choices of what is right and wrong. It is the part of the brain that takes in information from the body senses and decides on actions. It is also the center for consciousness, intelligence, and personality. The limbic area. The limbic area has a critical part of the brain called the amygdala. This part automatically evaluates what is safe and what is not. It is hardwired to remember anything that has threatened us so as to sound an alarm. If it perceives danger, after stressful or traumatic events, this appraisal system can become too active and it can sound an alarm even if there is no danger. This can cause the accelerator of the nervous system to go or get stuck on high. It can have a hard time telling the difference between what poses a danger and what is safe. For example, if someone was robbed or assaulted, hearing footsteps behind them may trigger fear. Their heart begins to race and they may have an impulse to run. Survival brain. It goes into action when you perceive danger. This happens automatically without thinking. The survival brain goes into action to save your life. It triggers our heart rate to go up and our breathing to go faster and tells chemicals to flood our brains to give us the energy to fight or run. When faced with danger that it perceives as life-threatening, the human body goes into instinctual defensive responses. The graphic of a person seeing a snake with his eyes triggers parts of his brain to react quickly. Ang difference sa limbic area of the survival brain is that the limbic area occurs either before or after the certain type of the event happened, and the survival brain occurs during the situation is occurring. Nabitaw jud ka on the spot sa situation, kanang unsaon nimo pag-overcome sa situation, unsaon nimo pag-save sa imong kaugalingon despite sa mga stressors nga imong gaka-feel. So let's continue with the resilient zone. When we say resilient zone, it refers to when our mind and body are in a state of well-being. Kana atong relaxed bitaw our best state, be it in mind, body, and spirit. When traumatic and stressful events occur, the natural rhythm within our nervous system may be thrown out of balance. The resilient zone may get bumped out of its natural rhythm, and the capacity to handle even daily life events may be difficult. Normal life stressors that once were shrugged off may cause a reaction of irritability or more serious symptoms. One of the goals of CRM is to help you bounce back into a resilient zone so that you can feel like your best self more often. Bumped out of the resilient zone. It is human nature to be bumped out of the resilient zone. For some of us become of stressful or traumatic experiences, we may feel bumped out most or all of the time. When bumped out of the resilient zone, a person may feel always on edge or stuck on high and or depressed and tired or stuck on low, or go between the two. And sometimes people describe it like being on a roller coaster. When we go back and forth between stuck on high or stuck on low, we may begin to have problems with our family, our work, and our community. maapektuhan jud ani ang tanang aspect sa imong kinabuhi ug ang mga nakapalibot sa imong kay constant man ang imong paghuna-huna ato mga butang na pwede maka-elevate sa imong mood or maka-trigger ka sa imong mga past experiences nga dili na dapat angay nato na balikan. Parehas ragad ana nga nabitaw tay uyab diha kanang mga naiuyab diha nga gibulagan or nagbulag. Pero hindi na dahil nila gahon-hon nga asa man po nagkulang nga nung gibulagan nung kuniya wala ba kayo ko effort sa iya napula na ba siya kasi lusan kaayo ko naba ko'y nabuhat nga nung naging bulag siya sa ako uwahi nga no bakit then wala dahil depressed na dahil na ang atong state or iyang state dili na dahil siya gakaon sige na lang siya reminisce lang past wala na dahil siya kabalo nga nakaapektuhan na diya yung lifestyle pati po ng mga tao nga nakapalibot sa iya pero ang mindset sa mga kabatanon kasagara kay bulan sus kadagan mga laki diha uy dili nakawalan sure guwapo yarn. Okay, moving on siya. Trigger can be almost anything that reminds a person of a traumatic or stressful event. Example like smell, sight, sound, touch, body position. The trigger can be outside of awareness. Our nervous system is designed to sound an alert if we are in potential danger. The alert goes off based on past experience. The triggers are different for each people. For example, for some people who have been sexually abused, a certain smell, sound, or body position could be trigger that could bump you out of your resilient zone. Kato akong example din kay gamera ko siya butang no and ang ginaitakol jud aning CRM kay kato yung mga mga past experience like na-abuse sila nga lisulid kay sila makabalik silang best self kay lagi trigger na sila or traumatized. Mas syada jud na ato i-strengthen ang ato mental state or mental health no ilabi na karon ng panahon nga grabe na ta kay ka-fragile mentally. Dali ra ta kayo kaluyahan, ka-depressed para dali ra ta maka-strategize sa mga coping mechanisms para nga makabalik ta sa atong best state or sa atong resilient zone. Thank you.
Community Resiliency Model. Skills help people understand their nervous system and learn to track sensation connected to their own well-being. So, tracking, pagsubaybay, means perception of sensation within the body. Use tracking in all capabilities of Community Stability Model. What do you mean by sensation? Sensation, sensasyon o pakiramdam. One of the goals of tracking is to learn how to tell the difference between sensations that are pleasant or neutral and ones that are unpleasant. When you practice this, it's easier to bounce back into resilient zone. The more you pay attention to neutral and or pleasant sensation, the more you strengthen your resilient zone. Get to know your internal climate by tracking. So as you learn the skills of tracking, so we have the awareness of sensation that will learn to bring part of skills of community resiliency model. So we have the examples of sensation words. So first is twitch, frozen, smooth, solid, congested, tingling, dull, airy, chills, numb, expanding, shaky, sharp, thick, vibrating, empty, tight, paralyzed, itchy, trembling, itchy, black, puffy, sweety, jag, shivery, pulsating, moving, bubble, and hard. So we have the sensation associated with trauma, stress, and resiliency and release. So we have the trauma stress. We have examples of constricted breath, rapid heartbeat, tense muscles, pain, and numbness. And resiliency is, we have the examples of resiliency is deeper breath, regular heartbeat, relaxed muscles, grounded, and calmness. And the examples of release. So we have the shaking, trembling, burping, yawning, heat warm, and vibration tingling. So next is resourcing, pagkukunan, means using positive things in your life to bring balance back to the nervous system. Tracking resource sensation is the way you can help your nervous nervous system come back into balance. So the first step is being able to name your resources. The second step is tracking the sensation that happen inside when you think about the resources. So there are two types of resources. First is external resources and internal resources. Ang external resources, guys, which is positive experience, like kanang sa imong friends, peoples, wala ka sa imong friends, magpa-advise ka sa imong problema. Next is places. For example ka, Ate Amy Rose, kanang nahanggat siya sa iyang friends nga ato ta atong lugar kay mo to makapagaan sa kong loob, makapawala sa problema. Then next is kanang spiritual guide, kanang spiritual, which is sa imong kaugalingon, kanang naa sa imuha makapawala sa problema, kanang dito ka sa asa ka nabilong, pwede ka sa activities, sa imong skills or sa imong hobbies and animals, di ba? Kanang sa animals sa inyo. So naapay hobbies and animals. Imong mga hobbies like sa imong talent, sayo ka, makapagaan sa imong kaugalingon nga makulang-kulangan bitaw nga dipod nga sige ra kag kaguol. Then kanta-kanta, mga inana sa imong kaugalingon kung unsa ang bisan og di na mo kailangan mag-share sa imong problema, kung naa kay spiritual guide makaya nimo naa. Then hobbies like sa inyong balay pag uli nimo, di ba, ang imong may istorya is ang iring og ang iro. Kung di ka hilig mag-share sa imong pamilya, sa imong or sa imong igsuon, so naay iring og iro nga imong maistorya paagi sa kanang magpalipay bitaw kay ang iro man jud kay nice mong video pun siya So next is internal resources. Includes experience, values, and beliefs that support and give meaning of life. Personal qualities that you like about yourself, like such as kindness and compassion. And also humor are also internal resources. So sometimes sensation connected to resources can flip into the sensation that are not pleasant. So for examples of internal resources, you may have picked your mother as your resource but she's died. She's still a resource memory but you miss her. If this happens, it does not mean you can't pick your mother for a resource, bringing your attention to more pleasant memories connected to your mother. So, we'll usually override a comfortable sensation. If that does not help you, you may want to choose a new resource. Next is grounding, means saligan is the direct contact of the body with the ground or with something that provides support to the body. A traumatic or stressful event can literally knock you off your feet. You may feel off balance. Practicing the skills of grounding on a regular basis is another way to get back into your resilience zone. When you ground, you're in the present moment. How to ground? You can ground by sitting, standing, lying down, or by walking. First is take your time finding a comfortable position. Next is notice how your back is making contact with the chair, sofa, floor, and wall, bed, earth, etc. Next, if sittings, bring attention to how your body is making contact with the sofa, chair, etc. Now notice your thighs, legs, and then your feet. Notice your feet making contact with the ground. Then notice the sensation that are more pleasant to you or neutral within your body. If you become aware of uncomfortable sensation, bring attentions to places that feel neutral or better. As you get ready to end, slowly you can scan your body and bring your attention to all sensations that are pleasant or neutral. Sometimes a person needs an image in order to experience positive or neutral sensation. Some people need to practice resourcing and research incentivization before practicing the skills of grounding. If you have grounding, it is difficult to find neutral or pleasant sensations. Continues to focus on developing your resourcing skills.
Gesturing and spontaneous movement. A movement usually of the body or limbs that expresses or emphasizes an idea, sentiment, or attitude. The use of motions of the limbs or body as a means of expressions. There are 5 types of self-soothing gestures or movements. First is self-calming, movements that bring comfort and safety. Second is universal movements that represents wholeness, spiritual beliefs, or deep personal meaning. Third is protective movements, hand, leg, and whole body movements. Fourth is releasing gestures, experience as sensations, leaving the body and helping to restore balance. And last is joyful gestures that represents experiences of happiness and joy. Paying attention to calming, protective, and universal gestures. When you are in your resilient zone, pay attention to movements and gestures you are making that are calming, universal, and or protective. The gestures can come up quickly without thinking. As you make the movement, slow the movement down and notice the sensations. Slowing down comforting movements will often strengthen the sense of well-being. Most people have a gesture or a movement that is made outside of awareness that brings the person back into balance. When you become aware of your movement or gestures, that can help you feel better in body, mind, and spirit. If you are feeling stressed, disconnected, and knocked out of your resilient zone, intentionally make the calming movement. Many calming motions are made by the hands and can be repeated with intention once you are aware of your calming gestures to help come back to the resilient zone. Use the skills of resourcing, grounding, shift and stay or up, amp down, ramp up when distressing gestures bump you out of your resilient zone. Amp down, ramp up are specific actions to help you come back into your resilient zone if you are high or stuck on low. Try one, some or all of the actions below. Some will work better for you than others. So use the ones that fits the best for you. You can also ask a friend or family member to help you with the actions listed below. First is drink a lot of water. Look around the room or wherever you are, paying attention to anything that catches your attention. Name 6 colors you see in the room or outside. Open your eyes if they have a tendency to shut. Slowly count backwards from 20 as you walk around the room. If you are inside, notice the furniture and touch the surface, sensing if it is hard, soft, rough, etc. Notice the temperature in the room. Notice the sounds within the room and outside. If you are outside or inside, walk and pay attention to the movement in your arms and legs and how your feet are making contact with the ground. Push your hands against the wall or door slowly and notice your muscles pushing. Shift and stay. Shift and stay means shifting your attention from something unpleasant to something neutral or pleasant and staying there. If you feel distress and you become aware of sensations of discomfort or pain, you can shift and stay by first moving your attention to a place in the body that is more comfortable, calmer, or neutral. Or 2, using one of your resources, notice the place inside that are calmer or neutral. Or 3, bringing attention to how your body is making contact with the chair, sofa, ground, etc. and noticing the places that are more pleasant or neutral inside. Track what happens inside as you stay focused on the more pleasant or neutral neutral sensations. So for the summary of the topic, social workers help clients cope with and resolve issues like substance abuse, grief, family dysfunction, and school adjustment. Social workers connect clients to community resources and empower them to overcome structural barriers such as poverty, discrimination, and social injustice. As part of their training, they learn evidence-based techniques in social work that help them guide clients towards goals that enhance their quality of life. It does so by using the community resiliency model, which trains community members to not only help themselves, but to help others within their wider social network. The primary focus of community resiliency model is to educate individuals about the biology and neurophysiology of trauma and resilience, as well as teach simple biologically based wellness skills which can help reset and stabilize the nervous system. Through community resiliency model, individuals learn to read sensations connected to their own well-being, which TRI calls the resiliency zone. Community resiliency goal is to help create trauma-informed and resiliency-informed and focused communities that share a common understanding of the impact of trauma and chronic stress on the nervous system and how resiliency can be restored or increased using this skills-based approach. So that's the end of our discussion. I hope you learned something from our topic, and thank you for listening, and God bless us all.